Hello, this is Miss Schiller, and I'm going to read chapter 17 from Fallen Angels by Walter Dean Meyer, and that starts on page 218. We were camped at an old landing strip just north of Tam Kai and less than 1,000 meters from Highway 1. I was glad to be near the highway. To the west, rice paddies stretched for what seemed like miles. The dikes were twisted uneven. I wondered how many battles had been fought among them. There were guys, mostly ARVN troops, sitting in tight little circles under the trees. I looked around for Americans and finally found some. I asked them if they knew where Alpha Company was. Up the hill a piece, a tired-looking guy said. I walked up the hill slowly. I could see small clusters of soldiers sitting around. It was less than a company, maybe a squad or two at the most. I was afraid again. I had felt it coming when I got my orders. I had felt it on the chopper, and now it sat like a heavy ball in my guts. The dirt on the hill was soft beneath my feet. Trees once splintered had grown or begun to grow again along the path up. I stepped on the boot prints that were there. The Vietnamese voices below me, ARVN troops, followed me up the hill. Pee-wee was standing near a tree peeing. God bless Pee-wee. Hey, buddy, you see any soldiers around here? Man, you as sneaky as the damn Kongs, Pee-wee said, looking up. I didn't even hear you coming. How's it going? Not too cool, Pee-wee said. He was rearranging his clothes as he talked. What's up? First things first. How the F are you doing? No big deal, I said. A couple of scratches. I was hoping you'd be back in the world, Pee-wee said. I was hoping you was back in Harlem getting loved on by 3 big-hipped mamas and wearing some wing-tipped kicks by now. I was kind of hoping myself, I said. We ain't done a thing since you've been gone, but sit out here in this effing rain and mud, Pee-wee said. I've been sitting in this shit so long my piles got wrinkles. Everybody okay? Yeah, I said we ain't done nothing, Pee-wee said. But you see who we with down the way? The ARVNs? Yeah, but that ain't the bad news, Pee-wee said. Come on, we got some barbecued pork chops on the fire. Where you get pork chops? Walwick shot a pig and cut the sucker up. Pee-wee said. We've been eating good since we've been out here. What's the bad news? I said, walking alongside of him. We went over to where Monaco was squatting with a bottle of soda. Monaco looked up, then he stood and threw both of his arms around me and hugged me. It really touched me. I thought I was going to cry. I'm sorry you're back, he said, but I'm real glad to see you, man, real glad. I started to say something about being glad to see him too, but it felt something wrong in the air. I looked for Monaco, from Monaco to Pee-wee. So what's up? Simpson went back to the world. Pee-wee looked up at the sky. I followed his gaze. The skies were a dirty gray. There was a thick cloud cover, heavy and threatening above us. A large bird started into the air as if it had been thrown, then stopped, spread its wings, and glided into a great arc to the west. He okay when he left? Yeah, Pee-wee said, but I ain't too sure about the new sergeant. He's a first sergeant, and he's old. How old? Guy's at least 30-something, Monaco said. He could even be 40. That hurts, by the way. He took Monaco off point and put me on, Pee-wee said. I didn't think nothing about it at first until he put me on all the damn time. Then he told Brunner he didn't want him pulling the rear. He put Johnson on the rear with the damn pig. Johnson's carrying the 60 in the rear? Yeah, what did Johnson say? Johnson asked him to his damn face, Pee-wee said. He asked him how come he put a brother on point and another brother in the damn rear with the 60. I looked at Monaco. He looked back at me. What did he say? Dongan, that's his name, Pee-wee said. He said he'd do what he think he should do, and it ain't for Johnson to tell him what to do. What did Johnson say? Johnson said he gonna mess around and get himself shot in the back of his head. So when they're talking about this, you can see the issues of the 60s and the interracial kind of tension that's going on. So obviously this new sergeant is white, and he's putting the black soldiers in the most risky positions, which is very not okay. And when he was questioned about it, he basically said, I can do whatever I want. So you can kind of see that racial tension that's going on in the 60s. We're on page 221. It rained for 7 days straight. We sat in the rain for 7 days straight. The mud oozed up into our boots, into our clothes, into our skins. There wasn't any way to get dry. There was talk about standing down Okinawa, but nobody took it seriously. There was a lot of talk about how well the other units of the outfit were doing, but the guys in the squad seemed a little different, tired. They seemed really tired. For the first 5 days after I got back, I didn't get to talk to Dongan. He nodded toward me once or twice, and that was it. I got an M16 and a grenade launcher from the armorer and found out that we had to move more ammunition than I thought we would. Gearhart came around and talked to us a couple of times, but Dongan stayed away. Johnson was getting a thing about him. I went over and talked to Johnson. I wanted to find out more about Dongan, but Johnson wouldn't deal with it. He asked me what I thought about Brew. I liked him, I said. He'd probably back home now, he said. Brew? Yeah. There was something about the way Johnson looked at me. I looked at Lobel and he shook his head. Probably back home, I said. So nobody knows that Brew died, and they're kind of seems like they're keeping it from everybody to kind of make everybody a little less worried. When Johnson went to Chow, I asked Lobo what the hell was going on with him about Brew. He's just not accepting the idea that he's dead, Lobo said. What's that supposed to mean? It means you asked too many questions, Lobo said. That's what's going on. The questions kept coming and nobody wanted to deal with them. Johnson didn't want to deal with Brew being dead, and Lobo didn't want to deal with Johnson. Maybe I did ask too many questions. The first day the weather lifted a little. A chopper came in with a priest. Pee-wee had made a checkerboard out of some leaves he wove together. He was good at that kind of thing. We played checkers day and night. We were playing checkers when the Huey came in with the chaplain. The chaplain was Catholic, and the Catholic guys had a mass or something. Then he came around to the rest of us. He didn't look like a chaplain. What he looked like was a middleweight who fought preliminaries in Atlantic City. His name was Father Santora. Sometimes, he said, prayer can be very comforting. I wonder if any of you men would like to pray with me. No, I said, why not? You wouldn't understand if I told you, I said. Trust me, he said. I just don't want to pray, I said. Figure you don't want to make your peace if you're not ready to die? I smiled. I had to smile. He was right and he knew it. Something like that. I know how you feel, he said. I'm not quite ready to die yet either. You ever go into combat? Into combat? Yes. I've never fired a weapon at anyone, though. You figure if you don't shoot at anybody, God's going to take care of you, Pee-wee asked. I don't know, he said. I sure as hell hope so. The big guns in the distance kept rumbling. The sound seemed to rumble through the hills and flatten out over the valley. If I pray with you, will it keep me alive, I asked. No. What will it do for me? I don't know, he said. I think it can be comforting at times. You can't say anything better than that? He shrugged. You scared being over here, I asked. Yeah, he nodded his head. I'm scared. We got the squad together. We told him some of the things that had happened to us. Then he prayed, asking God to take care of us and our loved ones, things like that. I really appreciated it. Then he started asking God to look out for Brew's soul. That's when Johnson walked away. Right in the middle of a prayer, he walked away. Father Santora looked up at him and was puzzled, or at least I think he was puzzled. When the prayer was over, Father Santora had to split. Where you going, Monaco asked. Someplace named Khe-san, Father Santora said. How come all these places over here have such foreign-sounding names? Johnson and Dongan got into a pretty heavy argument about how Johnson was keeping the 60. Dongan didn't think the extra barrel that Johnson had to keep was clean enough. Johnson was telling him that he needed a grenade up his ass. They got in real close to each other, and Johnson pushed Dongan away from him. Lieutenant Gearhart got Johnson away from Sergeant Dongan and started pushing him towards the HQ hooch. Pee-wee told Johnson that if anything funky went down that he could count on him. You can count on me too, I said. I meant it too. The squad didn't need any crap to get us separated. I knew that, and I'm sure that Pee-wee did too, but we didn't have to take any crap either. Guard duty. Me, Lobo, Pee-wee, and Sergeant Dongan. He said that he wanted to pull a guard to check us out. When he said that, Pee-wee opened his pants and told him to check out his crotch. Sergeant Dongan was from Richmond, Indiana. He sounded Southern, he looked Southern, and he seemed to think Southern. Brunner was sucking up to him as per usual. Johnson outlined the problem. Me, Pee-wee, Perry, and Monaco is the ends in this outfit, he said. We got to keep a serious watch on our asses. I believed him. Monaco was Italian, but he was the same as the black guys in Dongan's eyes. Maybe because he got along with us so well, I don't know. We went out on guard duty at 2000 hours. It was my first real duty since I'd gotten back to the squad. I hit the guard position and inspected it. It looked okay. It was a foxhole with sandbags around the top, the boards at the bottom to stand on. The boards were rickety, but they were better than oozing down into the mud. I lifted the boards and dug it down another foot. Noises. The crickets were creeping. Creepy crawlies were out in force. Crickets made a terrible racket. Things slithering through the grass could wake up the dead. The moon floating above us, scraping against the clouds. Noises. My watch's ticking was louder than my heartbeat. There was something out there. No, it was just the darkness. What was out there was me, fearful, crying in the night. I was afraid. I thought of Father Santora. A noise? Was it a click? What was it? Another noise. I saw Sergeant Dongan move his right arm. He seemed to be groping around in the darkness. He found something. He swung his arm in a tight arc, a grenade. Thump. It hit. Nothing. It didn't go off. I glanced up. There was movement. What might be a voice. Sergeant Dongan fired a short burst. There was a muffled scream. He fired off a flare. It went high into the air, ignited, then parachuted slowly towards the ground, lighting the entire area. There was one dead VC, a sapper with his wire cutter still in his hand, his lifeless body draped across the wire. He looked around, or I looked around, and I didn't see anything else. Slowly the light from the flare died. It was dark. The boogeymen could come out again. Minutes passed, an hour passed. We were relieved by a crew of grim-faced ARVN Marines. What a time for a dud grenade, Lobel said. Ain't through no dud, Dongan said. Through a damn rock. That gook ducked his head down when he heard it land. Then he wondered why it didn't go off. Stuck his head up and I popped him. Learned that from the 3rd Marines. The man knew what he was doing. He knew how to stay alive. Back at the hooch, Lobel came over and sat on Pee-wee's bunk. Pee-wee said that anybody who sat on his bunk had to give him a kiss. Lobel said he wasn't an F, a faggot. And Pee-wee said he was sorry about that because he really could have used a kiss. You guys think we're going to have a race problem over here, Lobel asked. Not as long as everybody over here got them a gun, Pee-wee said. Lobel stood up. Well, just in case we do, he said, I want you to know you got the Jew on your side. Who's the Jew? Pee-wee asked. Me. I'm the Jew. You ain't no Jew, Pee-wee said. You're too tall. F you, Pee-wee. There you go with them promises again, Pee-wee said. The rain stopped. We sat. We did nothing. The war was a million miles away. Wallowik told me and Pee-wee that we were talking about progress in the Paris peace talks. Perry? Pee-wee was hanging over the edge of his bunk directing traffic for an ant traffic jam. What? You ever have your black ass in Paris? No. Where have you been? New York? You know where I've been? Where? Chicago and Petersburg, Virginia. I got me a cousin in Petersburg. He worked in a library down there. What do you do? He run the whole thing. How he get to do that? He's just smart as hell, Pee-wee said. A joint operation. Captain Stewart came around to tell us how we had to look good because we were going to be working with the Marines. He made it sound like a job. We'll be going into the Pakha Valley. The Marine unit will come in first and clear the area, he said. Then we'll secure it and establish a landing zone in the valley. Is that clear? We didn't do anything. Like half the plans that came down from regiment, this one was canceled. The Marines had started a counteroffensive up near Tay San and moved up there instead of it into Pakha Valley. We were glad of that, damn glad. Lobel tried to get up a volleyball game, but nobody wanted to play. We got Gerhardt to requisition some gloves and baseballs from Battalion Supply. We got word that General Westmoreland wanted us to maximize destruction on the enemy. What the F does that mean, Pee-wee asked. We get a Kong, we supposed to kill his ass twice? No, monkey face, it means that we're supposed to kill as many of these gooks as we can, Brunner said. You gonna call me monkey face your way right to Arlington Cemetery, Pee-wee said. Later, lying in the bunk sweltering in the heat, I wondered what it did mean about maximizing destruction. Would it mean that we would simply kill more? But who would we kill? Maybe we would be quicker to shoot in the hamlets. Maybe we would stop pretending that we knew who the enemy was and let ourselves believe that all Vietnamese were the enemy. That would be the easy way. The women, the babies, the old men with their rounded backs and thin brown legs, they would be the enemy, all of them, and we would be those who killed the enemy. Okay, I got a letter from Pee-wee's girlfriend. The first thing she told me was that Pee-wee said I'm nice looking and educated. Then she went on to say how she was sorry she couldn't wait for Pee-wee anymore. Pee-wee wasn't around when I got this letter, so I just burned it. I got a letter from Kenny, too. He said he had a part-time job working at Kelly's Drugs on the corner of Lenox and 118th Street. For some reason, I felt so proud of him, what he would do, or that he would do that. I just hoped Mama was letting him keep all the money he made. He also said that he heard that Johnny Robinson got killed in Nam. Johnny Robinson? The last time I remembered seeing him was that we were playing 3-on-3 in Morningside Park. Johnny couldn't play that well, but he always tried hard. I had always thought he was younger than me. I didn't know how he could even be in Nam. Tuesday, raining. It promised to be the worst day of the war. We were sitting on the side of the hill. Johnson, Monaco, and Lobo had got some money together, and we were playing poker with some guys from Charlie Company. They called it Charlie Company, but it wasn't really anything more than 3 squads at best, 3 thin squads at that. The ARVNs caught a woman with 2 children coming along the edge of the patties. They stopped her and started slapping her around. Some guys from Charlie Company stopped them and brought the woman and the 2 kids to the headquarters hooch. Headquarters didn't have an interpreter, and the ARVN interpreter didn't get anything from the woman. They finally let her go. Pee-wee wanted to give the kids the checkerboard he had made. They probably don't even play checkers over here, Sergeant Dongan said. No lie, Pee-wee said. Maybe I'll make them a doll or something. He went over and started grabbing a handful of grass and started making a doll. It was important to him. I could see that, but I didn't know why. He wanted to make those children something, to give them something. I watched as some guys from Charlie Company started talking to the Vietnamese woman. They were just kidding around with her, talking stupid stuff about how they were looking for some cheerleaders. They followed her to the edge of the camp. Meanwhile, Pee-wee was working hard trying to get his little doll together to give to the kids. I watched as Pee-wee stood, putting the last touches on the doll. I thought it was real cool when the woman stopped just before she reached the dikes and handed one of the kids to a guy from Charlie Company. The GI's arms and legs flung apart from the impact of the blast. The damn kid had been mined, had exploded in his arms. Guys not even near him, guys who had just been watching him take the kid into his arms, fell to the ground at the very idea of a kid exploding in your arms had its own power, its own killing force. I saw the woman running across the patty. I saw her fold backward as the automatic fire ripped her nearly apart. I saw part of her body move in one direction and her legs in the other. The woman's other child stood for a long moment, knee-deep in mud and water, before it, too, was gunned down. I turned and saw Pee-wee walk away, the doll he made laying face down in the endless mud. It was raining again. Pretty shocking, kind of what we see in war and what happens. So that is the end of the chapter. Hope you enjoyed it.